Welcome again to the Peaceful Solution Character Education Certification courses. Everyone in the auditorium can be seated. Michael, can you turn that monitor on right there?
It is on.
It is?
Yeah, the light on the front. See the light on the front?
Oh, well, I have nothing on my monitor. Okay, that's all right. We'll keep going here. But if someone can turn the monitor on in front of me and check on this monitor on the stage, that would be great. But continuing on here, we're going to pick up where William left off, and hope everyone was very excited in William's last class. A lot of information that came out. A lot of, I had someone tell me that, it's hard to sit and listen to a class like that. I told them you should sit up here and try to teach a class like that. It's not a very easy thing to do, but as William said, it has to be done. These things have to be spoken. The information has to be brought. Because this is reality. This is what we're living in. This is the true world. As he compared, he talked about reality TV and, of course, the Kardashians who, they call that reality TV, but they know a camera's on them. They're doing things to make money. They're always selling this constant lifestyle. So that's a sales pitch. That's kind of make-believe. But the reality is a lot of things that he talked about last class, we're going to continue and pick up with what he was talking about last class, because even doctors are talking about what's taking place in society. So with that in mind, once again, I want to remind everybody that we are in the responsibility unit, which is the 5th of 5 series. We've already covered the character, the acceptance, the self-control, the respect, and now we're in the responsibility. And just for those, I know there's some watching that were asking that soon, they've already started making them. You'll start getting classes in Spanish like these, and you'll be able to participate in Spanish classes. So that's in the works. People are working very hard to get those done, and it takes a lot of work to get these things put together. We just have a great team that's assembled here at the headquarters. Makes it seem easy, but it was a lot of hard work over the years. The author and a great team of people put this facility together, and everything that it took to actually bring these classes on an international level is, you're talking about years in the making, and now trying to get these things out through the vision of the author in different countries, different languages, because it's needed in all walks of life. And of course, that's what our goal is to get this to every part of the world, to help people to be able to make sound decisions because they're educated. And as William talked about in his last class, there's a lot of things you'll hear in these classes you don't hear in mainstream education. You don't see it in mainstream news, but if you Google it, lo and behold, it's there. Like the STDs or the herpes he talked about in the coral reef, which is very well found if you just Google it. You don't see it much in the news, but it's there. If you Google it, you get all kinds of stuff back. Or the San Antonio article, or many more articles showing that STDs have been found in the air, actually in the atmosphere. So these things are a part of life. It's a scary part of life. And, when we looked at COVID here in the last few years, we realized how something can spread all around the world very quickly. And if you've ever traveled to an airport, especially an international airport, and, of course, you see how many people go into the same restrooms, how many people sit on the same planes, how many people touch the same device or seats or object, and then they all get on a plane. And if you've ever sat, you can sit in first class or business and you have some space, but you don't have enough where you're going, unless you're flying a 777, then you can lay down. But you're pretty much beside someone. And the person in front of you, you could reach out or reach to the side, you could touch them. But if you're sitting where everybody else is sitting in economy, you're sitting like this. And of course, you got all of these people that have been through different areas of the airport. Most likely, they're a connection flight, or they're coming into the country with a connection flight. So you're bringing all of these people together. Could you imagine if we had a little display screen above each and every person's head that showed exactly what sickness or diseases they had? It would probably scare the hell out of us. It might scare the hell out of us to see the ones above our own head. Because we're going to talk about today how a lot of these things are asymptomatic. Just like they were talking about people testing positive for COVID but had no symptoms. They were asymptomatic, but yet they had it. Well, these other things, And to tie back with what William was bringing, these other things lead to heart disease or to cancer or other illnesses in the body, breaking the body down, started out as an STD, but surfaces from HPV to oral cancer. When you're diagnosed with oral cancer, they don't say, HPV of the mouth, which would be absolutely right, but it's diagnosed as oral cancer. And that's why it came out years ago. People, how could I get oral cancer? I haven't smoked tobacco. I haven't chewed tobacco. I haven't done any of those things. How did I get that? Well, what else did you do? Let's look at this. And I don't remember the actor that's married to another actor. Michael Douglas, that's it. As William said last week, you guys are sharp. But he actually, after he was diagnosed with oral cancer, he openly said how he got it, and he was right. And this is a family class, and we won't get into the details, but you have to do some things you shouldn't be doing with people you shouldn't be with. Let's just put it that way. It's not done in a way that is healthy. And of course, when it's done where everybody makes it a community effort, well, think about all the people that go through the airport and everything they bring. And are you going to go through the airport licking every part of the airport? No, of course not. Well, looking back over here in our responsibility units, lesson plan 3, we're going to be looking at page E, going back in because we're going to finish up procedure 7 tonight and get into procedure 8. So lesson plan 3, page E, that's the gray tab pages that you'll have in your responsibility unit. That's why it's extremely important that if you buy a book, get a teacher's manual. It's extremely important. You're going to need these. But it says, explain to students that they can also demonstrate a responsibility to themselves when they control their emotions. And remember with that right there, remember in your mind what we learned in the 2nd and 3rd chapter of the self-control unit in dealing with emotions and how to control emotions and dealing with anger. So anytime we see these things, it should immediately be calling our minds back. And we've talked about more than just that throughout the books, but those are 2 chapters that cover emotions in depth. So you want to either have those notes there or you want to make sure you can remember to reference back to what we've covered so far. Because remember, we're building here. Every block is building upon another. Now, although it is normal at their age to become interested in members of the opposite sex, premarital sex is a dangerous and irresponsible choice that results in many negative consequences. And of course, you see here it said assign pages 54 through 57 for homework. And I think William covered this. I was listening to his class again earlier because, like he said, you always learn a lot from other teachers. And I know he addressed this a little bit. But, if this book was written today, you would probably see something in here where it would say to become interested in members of the opposite sex or the same sex. Because society has changed so drastically today. He talked about how these transgender teachers are going in and reading things to students, trying to tell them that, hey, this is okay. You should try it too. But once again, if you're going to take your child through the airport, and I don't, if you've been to an airport, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, if you've never been to an international airport at 12 noon to 5 p.m., you're talking about a hallway that's probably 30 to 40 foot wide, and it's packed. And I mean as far as you can walk. And you're talking about places that are small cities. They are literally people from all parts of the world. And you start thinking of everything that they're bringing in, and think of how many people don't even wash their hands, properly. And then how many people don't even wash their hands, period. And you get into those things, and then you start thinking about people who cold sores, life in their mouth, and then putting their hands on things. And, of course, you see the glaring spit on the chair or wherever they did that. Or they're waiting at, one of these coffee deals to get their coffee, and they're rub it on the counter a little bit, and the next person comes and puts their elbows on the counter. And you see all of these things. You sit back and watch, and I've done this before. When you have a couple hours layover, you sit back and you watch, and that's what I've done a lot lately, is just watch how many people will touch the same objects and then touch their mouths and touch other things. And it's kind of scary, actually, knowing what all is being passed around so easily, that you're mindful of, it's, yeah, if you go out and you want to play Russian roulette with hooking up with somebody, that's bad. But in today's society, if you're not careful about how you just conduct yourself in the community or in a public place, it can get very nasty. And we'll bring some more stuff on that too as we proceed forward. But looking over here to page 54, we just want to rehearse a few things because we're going to read some articles to back up what William was saying in his class. He brought a lot of information, and of course there's an enormous amount of information to support. You can only get so much said in an hour, and he brought a lot of articles, but there's a lot more to support everything that he's saying, and not only everything that he said, but why it must be said, why it has to be said, and why if you ignore it, if you don't teach it, if you're not responsible as teachers, and I know it's difficult as a teacher to get these things across, but guidance counselors have more authority. They can get things in a little bit deeper with subjects. It's an obligation in today's society to get this information across. Even experts are saying in today's society that they're scared with this syphilis outbreak that's going around that people are not going to take this serious. Because a lot of people that get this, they don't have any symptoms. And by the time they find out they've got syphilis, it's already in stage 2 or 3, and it's already causing destruction. It's tearing you apart. There was one doctor in the news we played in a presentation just a few weeks ago where the doctor literally said, when you get syphilis, what's scary is, well, it's lying dormant. It's still destroying your body. And you don't even know it's there, and it's dormant, and it's still lying dormant. It's still destroying your body. So that's the scary parts of reality. But looking here to page 54, in the right below the first paragraph, it says, so just what should I do with all of these pent up emotions? Well, what should I do? Well, notice it says control them. That's right. You have to control your emotions. Notice we have an obligation and a responsibility to ourselves and to the object of your affection to practice self-control. But notice here, the society we live in does not make this easy to do. In fact, the society we live in makes it extremely difficult to do. And I'll tell you, and I'm not telling you to go watch this. I don't know how you could watch. I'll warn you. But I've recently had a long flight, so the movie Oppenheimer was on there, and it was supposed to be about the development of the nuclear bomb. And I'd heard a lot about it. I'd read a lot about it. So I thought, I want to see because it's supposed to be a lot of factual parts to it. So I wanted to see it. I haven't seen something like that in years. I don't know if you've ever sat beside somebody in an airplane and it just so occurs to be a woman and nobody tells you the movie is full of nudity. And here you're trying to learn to see about information like a documentary point of view, and you're seeing a bunch of garbage. And William talked about how they put this stuff up for eye candy, for ratings. But I find it extremely embarrassing, to be honest with you. Not even in privacy do you want to see that stuff, but when you're sitting in public and you have a woman sitting beside of you, and you got your headphones on so they don't have a clue to what you're doing, and they look over and it's like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to do that. Well, the airplane is the one that has the movie, That's the one that actually had it free to watch on my flight. And that's the thing about it. That is, I'm not going to say the airlines, but that's a movie the airlines was putting out for you to watch on your flight to occupy your time. Obviously, they know it's on there. They know people are sitting in public. You'd think there'd be some kind of warning to these things, but no, you just find yourself, trying to break your iPad if you have to get it to shut off because it's embarrassing. But, I never even finished it. I got to that part and I just quit watching it. I didn't want to see anymore. I was really wanting to learn something, and I learned something, but not what I wanted to learn. But continuing on here, just to cover these two next paragraphs, because we're going to get into some articles about these. It says, we live in a society where sex is part of almost every TV show, song, commercial, movie, magazine, and music video, and I think of some of these that come out that are real popular, these songs, and I don't want to say lyrics to put them in your mind, but there were songs that's come out to where people are, and these are popular songs that, you know, I've read the lyrics to them. They have these catchy beats to them where they say, it's hard to even tell you what it says without saying the name of the song. Let's just say you're hot for the winter. How about that? Instead of what the song really is. But it's saying that you can do something just over your vacation, even if it's something that's vile, something that is wretched, something that is disgusting. You can do it for the summer, and it's okay. After summer, we'll forget about it, and we'll go back to our lives. But we're okay for these 2 months or these 3 months. And that was an extremely popular song just a few years ago. And it was endorsing 2 teenagers that, yeah, just do it for the summer. It's okay. It'll be okay. Yeah, you're fine. Just do it. Everybody's doing it. But no, everybody's not doing it. You know, and that's one thing we need to get through to our students as teachers. It's not true. Everybody is not doing it. No, not everybody's doing drugs. Not everybody's out doing illicit things. You know, I'm 50 years old, or 51, somewhere around in there, something like that. And I've never done a drug in my life. So no, you don't have to go through life doing drugs. I know a lot of people that have never done drugs. And I know a lot of people that have never done a lot of things. You know, as you know, I've never caught a bullet with my teeth or drank charcoal fluid either, or the lighter fluid that William was talking about. You know, I've managed to get that far. I have done some stupid things in my life that, you know, hindsight is 20/20. But there's a lot of things that once we know the danger behind these things, we know how to make better choices. And remember what we learned in the self-control unit in chapters 4 and 5 with these influences, even in the music. Remember, it's more than just a beat. And how these lyrics and these sexual innuendos in TV shows and all of these things, these teaching tools. And we even referenced on how we learned our ABCs, we learned them with music. And of course, when music has these vile, you know, these really disgusting things in the song, and then you start singing along because you like the beat, and then you realize what you're singing. And you're literally teaching yourself. You know, I told someone here last week, you know, they said, I'm going to do a job and I'm going to get hurt doing it. And I said, well, you know, psychology says if you tell yourself you're going to get hurt before you do it, you're probably going to get hurt before you do it. And I talked to them yesterday. I said, where were you at? Well, I got hurt doing it. So, and I hated that because he got hurt pretty bad. You know, it wasn't something he planned on that he wanted, but anytime we set our mind, if we set our mind up for failure, we're going to fail. You know, if we already accept the fact that, I don't care, that can't get on me. We'll talk about that more in these articles. It can get on anyone. Nobody is immune to it if you don't practice morality. So once again, we live in a society where sex is part of almost every TV show, song, commercial, movie, magazine, and music video. Movie stars and singers all act sexy, and they are known in addition to their talents for their sex appeal. Clothing is designed to attract the opposite sex. Even perfumes and colognes have been manufactured to increase sex appeal. With sex so much a part of your daily lives, you get the impression that everybody's doing it. And if you're not, you're a misfit. You know, that's the impression you get, but it's not really true. You know, I see these bottles of perfume. I seen one, I just picked it up because I was wondering, well, I wonder how much this stuff cost. I had nothing else to do. You know, you kind of get tired of just sitting there. I picked it up, $190 for a bottle of perfume that was like that big. And I thought, man, I don't know what it smells like, but I guess one spray would be about $20, so I don't even want to know. And it's amazing how much people will pay for this, because this was a store that's all they sold was perfumes. And a lot of people were buying that stuff. It wasn't, to them, I guess it wasn't expensive. I don't know what perfume sells for, but I guess that was a fair rate at the international airport, I guess, because people were buying a lot of it. But notice here it said, the problem is with so much emphasis on sex, there is very little emphasis on the consequences of having sex before marriage. You know, and even getting into marriage, if you don't do your marriage a certain way, you can still bring these things in, you know, through experiments and through doing things that's outside of morality. There are no sitcoms depicting young women and men getting diagnosed with herpes or syphilis. No music videos about how life changes for the millions of young men and women who are diagnosed with HIV positive. No action-packed movies of their suffering and daily struggles with a disease that will ultimately take their lives. You know, I seen a documentary one time on a very popular singer named Freddie Mercury. And it goes through the whole ordeal of how he went from, you know, as they said, being a straight man to a gay man, and how through, it was supposed to be a movie that was endorsed by his people, is what they say, the people that represent his name and his, what the impression they would want people to have of his life. And you know, it was about an hour long, and I was watching it to see how they portrayed this. Did they portray it as something wretched and horrible that was full of regret? But you know, the whole aspect of him getting and contracting a disease, I think it laid into like 2 or 3 minutes of the show, the documentary, and they made it look like it was just something that occurred, you know. And you think about this man died young. Had a great voice, but you know, through making some bad decisions, he lost his life. He died a horrible death. Body went through all kinds of misery. Well, when you think about those things, William covered these things, so you can go back and watch last class to get more information on that. But I want to take what we've read right now, and I want to go to the World Health Organization and what they have about sexually transmitted infection. And these are facts. And if we could put up the first slide. These are facts, and this is from the World Health Organization. And the first fact is more than 1 million sexually transmitted infections, STIs, are acquired every day worldwide. Notice, more than 1 million sexually transmitted infections are acquired every day worldwide, the majority of which are asymptomatic. So the majority of them don't even realize it. 1 million a day. The next is, each year, there are an estimated 374 million new infections, with 1 of 4 being chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, or trichomoniasis. More than 500 million people ages 15 to 49 years are estimated to have a genital infection with herpes simplex virus, the HSV or herpes. Going over to the next slide. Continuing with facts here, the human papillomavirus, also known as HPV infections, is associated with over 311,000 cervical cancer deaths each year. And this is where William, because I had somebody call me and they said, hey, the teacher said that cancer is an STD. Absolutely it is. We've taught that for years in the Peaceful Solution. You know, absolutely. And this is why. Here's a fact that 311,000 people are dying from cervical cancer from a sexually transmitted disease called the human papillomavirus in the cervical area. If it gets in your mouth, it's called oral cancer. It can identify itself many places in your body. Notice also, 1 million pregnant women are estimated to be infected with syphilis in 2016, resulting in over 350,000 adverse birth outcomes. You're talking about children with birth defects, whether it be a swelling of the brain, whether it be of other parts of the body. You know, one of the hardest things you'll ever do, if you can, and the author of The Peaceful Solution had us do this before, go through and look at birth defects with children. You know, and I know that's a touchy thing in school, but if you can teach the things they teach about, you know, uneducating. I don't call it sex education. It's more uneducating because they're not really teaching the truth. If they can do that, they can throw some reality into it. And if you've never seen a baby born with a heart on the outside of the body, or a baby born with no arms, or a baby born with no legs, or the legs only goes to the knee, or they have arms and the hands are missing, you know, or babies born with no nose, no eyes, or a cleft palate where the whole upper part is just numerous surgeries just to fix the damage that's there. You know, all of these things are cause for a reason. And I'm not saying the parents are bad. You know, it's a scientific fact that these things are passed through generations. We can answer for things that our grandparents did, our great-grandparents did. That's a scientific fact that it's passed down through DNA, and it takes a while to get it out of the DNA. You know, so these things, whenever we commit something that can bring an STD into our bodies, we're not just affecting ourselves. We're not just being responsible for ourselves. We're not even being responsible for the children and our grandchildren that are to come. We're helping them have one foot in the grave before they ever get into the world. And that's why this responsibility concerning this topic is extremely important. Notice here with the last fact on this slide, it says that STIs, which are sexually transmitted infections, have a direct impact on sexual and reproductive health through stigmatization, infertilization, cancers, and pregnancies, complications, and can increase the risk of HIV. Well, the risk of HIV is because you're doing things you shouldn't be doing. And then, of course, this last fact that we have here, and this is one that, you know, for all of you that, well, you know, all I got to do is I get syphilis, I just go down and get a shot. I get gonorrhea, they give me a shot. They're a curable STD. You probably want to go read the news about these super gonorrhea and super syphilis and these STDs that have mutated. They've adapted to the penicillin shots and the other shots they're giving, and they're not helping anymore. They're not even, in fact, they're not, all it can do is like this HIV drug, and I know they've used Irving Magic Johnson, a man that contracted HIV back in the 90s, and he's still alive, and you know, now they say, oh, you can live with HIV. One time it was a death sentence, now you can live. And then you die. You know, it just prolongs your illness is what it does. But it helps it to lie dormant. It's the same thing if a person has herpes and they get on Herpecin or another drug that's for herpes. It's like a sleeping pill for the virus. But the virus eventually builds up immunity where you have to give it something stronger. Then it builds up immunity to that. You have to give it something stronger. Then it builds up to that. You have to give it something stronger. And eventually you get to where the medication you have to take starts destroying your liver, your kidneys, and other parts of your body. So you have to decide, do I want herpes or do I want to have my liver go to trash? Or do I want my kidneys to fail? You know, do I want renal failure or do I want a herpes outbreak? Which one do I want? Well, you didn't have to have either one. But through, really, it's decision making, but it's a lack of education is what's bringing this about. And that's why it's called matter of the heart, because it's really a lack of education that is causing these things to come to pass. But here on this last slide, with the facts here, it says drug resistance is a major threat to reducing the burden of STIs worldwide. Now, that's on the World Health Organization page. That's exactly what they said. And I am not here to argue with the World Health Organization, but I would think that the greatest threat to not reducing STIs is the lack of proper education. There's no drug going to fix this problem. I remember in the 80s, you know, a group that came out with a song, I Want a New Drug. And then he says he wants one that doesn't make him, and the whole song is what he doesn't want the drug to do. And when you get to the end of the song, it's like, well, you can't have a drug because those drugs are going to do all that. There's no way to do it. You know, but it was kind of a comical thing because the whole point was drugs don't fix things. There's nothing you can do with a drug that, you know, you can put makeup on a pig all you want to, it's still a pig. You can inject yourself with all of the injections you want to. You're trying to cover up something that should have never. As teachers, if you can do something with a petri dish, do something where they can watch something grow, where they see nothing, swab something, can't see it, but you start coming back in a few days and something's growing. And then a couple weeks, that's bigger. And then a few more weeks, wow, it's out of control. That's what it's like inside of our bodies when an STD gets inside of our bodies. Don't really see it at first. But by the time you see it on the outside, man, it's like a tree that's growing. You know, if you've ever tried to push a tree down, it's like that big. You push it down and, man, the stuff that comes out of the ground, roots going everywhere. And you realize, well, there's a lot going on you can't see, or like an iceberg. It's the same way with a sexually transmitted disease. Here's an article that came out from Hilo, and it's called U.S.'s STD epidemic worsened again in 2023. And this article came out December 23rd of 2023. And it says rates of STDs continue to rise in the United States with CDC data showing increases year after year. We compiled a list of stories highlighting the epidemics and strides being made in STD care. And I would advise you to go on the website to get all of the stories, because this is a fairly lengthy article and there's a lot of information there. But I have the logo there, and you can go on their website and get that information, or just Google that title of the news article and you'll pull it right up. It says sexually transmitted diseases continue to be a major public health concern, with rates of infections increasing year after year. That means that's a bad thing. It's not like your checking account getting bigger. This is something, it's like deficit getting bigger. And you know what? You got a better opportunity of paying off the deficit than fixing the STD problem if you don't educate people in what's causing the problem. And the deficit's not going to get fixed. STD epidemics continue to worsen, the CDC says. Now, that's the Center for Disease Control. They're supposed to control disease, and they're saying it's out of hand. Now, final surveillance data released by the CDC confirmed that reported cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis increased between 2020 and 2021 in the United States, totaling more than 2.5 million. And then going to the next article you see here, this is from ABC News. Syphilis cases at highest levels in 70 years, an alarming trend. And it says here, syphilis cases reached their highest level since 1950, the report found. The number of sexually transmitted infections, STIs, in the United States show no signs of slowing. No signs of slowing, which means what needs to be done is not being done. Nothing is being done to stop this issue. The water pipe has broke, and everybody's got a mop trying to mop up the water, but nobody's going to the faucet to turn the water off. It's still taking place. The virus is still growing, it's still spreading. If you want to stop the spreading, you have to educate people on what causes the spreading, and then you have to use self-control to not participate in what causes the spreading. You know, education is only one part. You can tell people what brings it about. That doesn't mean they're going to choose not to do it. So education is so extremely important, but then people have to have the courage to do what's right. But here it says a total of 2.53 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis were recorded in 2021, according to a new report published Tuesday from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. I don't know about you, but I would think somebody needs to check into the quality and the job performance of the CDC. That's a 5.8% increase from the 2.39 million cases reported in 2020, and a 7% increase from 5 years ago, when 2.37 million STIs were recorded in 2017. Going on to the next slide, continuing with the article, this is a doctor speaking here. It says, I'd like people to understand that this data actually impacts them, whether they think it does or not, because STIs, or STDs, sexually transmitted infection or diseases, happen to everyone, regardless of socioeconomic, religious, political lifestyle. Dr. Camilla Phillips, an OB/GYN in New York City, told ABC News, I'd like them to really understand that routine testing at their healthcare office is super important. Gonorrhea doesn't care who you are. Let me ask you, if you're not shooting a nail gun through your finger, or you're not running a sewing machine needle through your finger, do you need to go to the doctor to have your finger fixed? No. Well, if you're not doing something to get gonorrhea or syphilis or chlamydia, do you need to go get a shot, or do you need to take any kind of precautions if you're not committing an action to bring it forth? No, as long as the person you're with is not doing something like that. You know, it is possible to have relationships free of STDs. That's a scientific fact. It is possible to have a relationship and never bring forth an STD. You have to create an STD just like you have to create a baby. It takes two things coming together to create one thing. It doesn't just evolve, it just fell out of the sky right on me. And the excuses that come up. Well, why is it leading to murder? Because last class, because it was brought out in last class that you could be a murderer with these things. And it was even mentioned why you can be a murderer. Go to the next slide if you could. And notice here it says unintended pregnancies and abortions worldwide. And this is from the Guttmacher Institute, which they monitor abortions. They do a fairly decent job at monitoring these things. And it says unintended pregnancies and abortions are experiences shared by people around the world. These reproductive health outcomes occur irrespective of country income level, region, or the legal status of abortion. Roughly 121 million unattended pregnancies occurred each year between 2015 and 2019. 121 million. Of these unintended pregnancies, 61%, now these are reported, 61% ended in abortion. That translates to 73 million abortions each year. 73 million murders. I seen a poster one time, and it had a young teenage girl, and she's sitting on the bed, and it shows the baby. She got pregnant, and now she's got to tell her mom she's pregnant. And she's sitting on the bed, she's got her, her head in her hands. She's like, my mom's going to kill me. And then you see the picture of the baby, and it's got a balloon up above its head, and the baby's got its head in its hands. It's like, my mom's going to kill me. And yeah, mom probably was going to be mad, but mom didn't really kill her, but she did kill the baby, murdered the baby. I know William talked about a couple ways they perform these abortions, and he could have said things much more graphic than what he did to show how bad these things are. And I know that you get into abortion and you create a hot topic. That we've already taught a lot about what morality teaches about abortion in the Peaceful Solution. And if you have to do something to take the life of someone else, if you're doing that, that's murder. It's simple. And for the people that the author addressed this the best in a symposium in Dallas, Fort Worth one time, when someone told him it's not a life, and he said, if it's not a life, why do you have to kill it? Because it's a life. That's why. It's growing. It's developing. And you have to eliminate it. And sadly, people think that responsibility is taking the morning after pill. I was responsible. I'm not going to have an abortion. I just took the morning after pill, which is an abortion. It eliminates the process. If you think you got to take a pill to eliminate something, just don't do it to begin with. Refrain from it. Refrain from the devastation that you're bringing. With those things in mind, and I encourage everyone to go back and listen to the last class also, because it's a lot of stuff that has to be said. And I know we can say stuff in our classes because the Peaceful Solution is all about teaching morality, and we limit what we do say on some things, but some things we will expound on. And I know you can't do that in schools, but guidance counselors have a lot more reach into these areas than your average school teacher do. But these things do need to be put in the mind of students. And once again, if transgenders can come in and teach sex uneducation classes, if they can do that, then somebody can come in and teach what the truth is. Someone can teach them why these things actually take place. Could you imagine if your son or daughter, when I was in high school, you would go to your driver's ed class at 15 years old so you could get your driver's permit. I grew up in North Carolina. So at 15, you could get a driver's permit after you completed class, and you could drive with a licensed driver in the car. Could you imagine if in driver's ed class, the person come in with the red sign that says STOP, that means go fast. Oh, I thought it meant stop. No, that's just people's opinion. No, you go fast. Could you imagine the devastation if we went through telling people that? Could you imagine what would take place if some people's told, no, that means stop, and other people's told, no, that means go? It's the same thing by telling people, no, that won't hurt you. You just have to, you don't even know who you are yet. Your birth certificate doesn't identify who you are. It used to, you don't need a medical degree to determine what if a child's a male or female. You just need a pair of eyes to see, most of the time. It's not like rocket science. But society has even confused that down to where they're teaching children, well, you don't even know until you're 18 years old what you really are. You have to kind of grow up, and then you'll decide what you are as you grow. And think of the confusion. And I don't blame the children for not knowing, for not understanding. Because if someone teaches you that the red sign that says stop is go, from the time you're 3 years old to the time you're 18 years old, it's not your fault you think it's go, because someone lied to you that whole time. And then when you get a horrific disease that destroys your body, you start seeing what that lie really did to you and how it destroyed you. And here on page 56, getting into our book, I know it's a lot of information to talk about, but there's just a lot of things that the Center for Disease Control is not controlling it. And they admit they're not controlling it. They admit it's out of hand. The only thing that's going to save our society is education. Proper education on why things are taking place. That's it. But here on page 56, it says, read the following poem about a young woman's decision to engage in premarital sex and the consequences of her action. It says, I should have. I thought it would make me popular. I should have walked away. Now it's a decision I must live with every day. I thought I could start it and then draw the line, but he told me it was okay and everything would be fine. Before it was over, I knew it was wrong. I should have been responsible. I should have stood strong. What would he do with a baby was all that he would say. He said he couldn't handle it, and he turned and walked away. Now I sit and wonder about the life that comes to be, how I will alone take care of this baby and me. My parents felt such disappointment, sadness, and shame. As for me, I have only myself to blame. The decision was mine to make, all mine. I should have used self-control and taken more time. If I had thought carefully, I would have known it was wrong. I should have been responsible. I should have stood strong. And you notice here, that a lot of, even though that's put there to kind of sound very nice, there's a lot of truth in that. And you have the following questions here to follow up with. And of course, it tells us to answer the following questions. And this is an assignment that they take home, but you want these things to be brought back to engage in these as a class discussion. And it said, did the writer make a responsible decision? Explain why or why not. And of course, a feasible answer would be no, she engaged in premarital sex even though she knew it was wrong. Well, why is it determined to be wrong? Well, look at the situation she got into. And, I can tell you these things right here. I've been to countries where there's one particular country where I have met an enormous amount of people. And I work with a lot of people in this country. And I have never to this day met a family that is still together, a husband and a wife and their children. Not one family. And most of the people I meet are older women that are looking to try to help their children not fall into what they fell into, and they're raising their families by themselves. And I always ask, well, where's your husband at? I hadn't seen him in years. That's usually what you hear. And now you have grandparents that are getting involved. But, I was amazed when because I always ask when I meet the families, oh, okay, where's your husband? I've never yet met a husband yet. And it's kind of heartbreaking. And it's sad because, the Peaceful Solution, here we have a lot of male and female teachers. And I encourage men, there's more men out there that should be responsible. And right now we have, our auditorium is full of men. And we have a lot of men watching online. It's almost like for every one man you find that wants to teach morality, you can find 50 women that want to teach morality. Why? Because the men have abused the women and left them high and dry, and they know what it's like for someone to do them wrong. They know what it's like for someone to make an irresponsible choice, and they get stuck with having to answer for it, and the other person just wash their hand and walk away. That's why I truly believe in the author of the Peaceful Solution told myself and William and David and Catan one time, the reason you'll always find more female teachers, women teachers, is because they've been done wrong more than the men have. They've been left high and dry more than the men have. And they want to see a change because they don't like what they're going through. And that's sadly, this story right here is everyday life. And what do the young ladies do for an answer? Go get an abortion. That's how you're going to wash your hands. So when we talk about abortions, and it's very important to understand this, if you're a man and you walk away from the woman that you got pregnant, you're no better than the woman that aborts a child. You're really that. You're worse than that, really. You really are. Everybody wants to look at the woman and think that, well, she should have known better. I always ask, well, where's your husband? Where's the guy that got you pregnant? Where's he at? Gone. Probably off somewhere else getting somebody else pregnant. That's the sad part of society. That's the sad reality. When these girls go home and tell their parents they're pregnant, I sure hope the boys are going home and telling their parents what they did too. Because they tend to wash their hands and walk away. But if you want to get involved in doing morality, then the Peaceful Solution's all for it. But continuing on here, number 2, it says, how do you know the writer regretted her decision? Well, if you see here, it says the continued use of the phrase, I should have. Hindsight is 20/20. Man, if I had only knew. Man, if I had only chose this. If I had only done this. Indicates regret she feels for her decision. Well, how will the writer's decision affect the rest of her life? She will have greater responsibility at a younger age. She will have the responsibility of caring for a child she is unprepared for. This could prevent her from fulfilling her goals. One of these days soon, hopefully we can get some testimonials from people so you can hear what people outside of this country do to survive because someone left them high and dry with a child. And the bizarre things that people are doing to make $40, $50, and $60 a week just to get food. And I mean, from people that the only thing that's helped them is the Peaceful Solution. And there's many people saying, this is saving my life. But the things that it's helping them get out of, and it really needs to be told here to America because the United States is the one behind the supporting of demoralizing women on the internet. Sick men with sick minds with credit cards treating people like trash for their own entertainment. I think if people would see what they're doing to human beings when they get offline and then they have to go to medical treatment for suicide prevention because people treat them like a piece of meat. And it's the only way to survive. There's no other jobs. There's nothing else to do in that economy. That's the easiest thing to do. And of course people look and say, well, those people shouldn't do that. Well, the people shouldn't do drugs either, but it starts with the people that's producing the drugs. If you don't create an environment for that to take place, it won't take place. You can create an environment to create STDs, or you can create an environment to teach morality. And the Peaceful Solution is winning in these things. Morality is winning. Before it's over with, we'll take every teacher we can find from those places, and we'll turn them into teachers of peace. Men and women, doesn't matter who they are or what they've done. If they want to learn morality, we'll take them and we'll help them. Especially the people that are doing it to them. That's who really needs the help. Here in number 4, it says, who else was affected by her decision? Well, of course, her parents, her unborn child, and the father of the baby. Well, the father of the baby is affected to a certain extent, but of course, irresponsibility allows men to walk away a lot of times, sadly. And it's just a sad part. It's a really sad part to what goes on in society. But if we would identify things for what they are and what's really going on, we could actually address these matters a lot better. Here on page 57, it says, young men also feel pressure to engage in premarital sex. This negative choice results in unplanned and unwanted pregnancies to which they are just as responsible as their partners. Reading the following poem about a young man who had to make an important decision. It says, my friend told me it would make me a man, but the stress of this choice I could barely stand. Whether to go against what I know is right or to please my friend, to fit in, to be tight. What about her feelings, I say? What about the innocent? This act will steal away. To make this choice, I was up all night, tossing and turning, nothing seemed right. That morning I decided right then and there that being a man means making my choice clear. With courage, I told my friends my decision that stood firm through the hell of their derision. I made it through. I withstood their scorn and stood firm on my choice, for that day a man was born. You know, and you look at this, someone that's choosing to make the right choice, someone that's standing up, not giving in for, you know, as William talked last week and the author of The Peaceful Solution would say, you know, 5 minutes of what you thought was the best thing in your life, and then the rest of your life you have to pay an answer for it. You know, so how many people would literally trade their life for 5 minutes? Not many people when they have well, it's not too smart of an investment there. Yeah, you can either have a healthy life or you can live the rest of your life sick, can't walk, spitting up, whatever, parts of your body rotten, dying. You know, getting old has its own side effects. That's what I call side effects in itself. We don't need to help ourselves get old. We'll get old on our own. But there's a lot of things that come along with it. Well, here you see, what decisions did the writer make? Well, the writer chose not to engage in premarital sex. Well, was the writer's decision easy to make? How do you know? Well, no, the writer's decision was difficult to make. He stayed up all night. You know, and you think about that, there's been things I've stayed up really late making decisions, and sometimes even making the right decision or trying to make the right decision. You try to figure out which way to go with it. You know, I know a group of people that stay up a lot of nights just trying to make the right decision and trying to make the right decision for a group of people. And they really concentrate on doing what is right. That's the goal of one group of people I work with very closely. Their goal is to always examine closely and do whatever it has to be done to do what's right. Even if it's hard, whatever's right has to be done. And it's very carefully sought after, and really the best efforts are put forth to do those things. And then, of course, those answers are come through by examining it with, well, what does the Peaceful Solution teach? What is morality? What is the rules of morality? And how will our decisions affect, you know, these things? And that's truly how decisions come about, to be moral or immoral. Number 3 here, it says, were the writer's friends trying to influence him positively or negatively? Explain your answer. Notice here it says negatively. We know this because his friends were trying to influence him to engage in a risky behavior. Then they made fun of him for making a positive decision. Well, number 4 here says, what other character traits did he display because of his responsible choices? Well, notice he showed respect, determination, and self-control. You know, and all of these things are not easy to do. They're difficult to do, but it's possible to do. And the outcome, you know, the outcome of doing the right thing is always the best, but getting to that is never the easiest. It just becomes easier as it becomes a habit. Remember to value, imitate, practice, and like a muscle, it becomes stronger, it becomes easier to do. And then here, the very last one, it says, what does the writer mean by that day a man was born? Well, the writer meant that having sex does not make a boy into a man. The true treasure of a man is making the right decision and standing firm on it. You know, and that's truly where it talks about, you know, growing up or maturing. That's really what brings things forth to show this maturity. Going back over here to Lesson Plan 3, page E. We're going to be in Procedure 8 going into page 58. That's going to take us into Procedure 8. So let's go back and read that procedure real quick. And it says, remind students that earlier in the chapter they learned that accepting the word no with a respectful and humble attitude is a responsible choice. Emphasize that when dealing with negative peer pressure, it is okay for them to say no to risky behavior and to anyone who would try to pressure them into making irresponsible choices. Have students read the section, You Too Can Say No, found on page 58. And remember, when it comes to saying no in the peaceful solution, it's always based on ownership. And you own yourself, and of course, if you're at a certain age, yes, your parents have an ownership over you. That's why we've already explained how that gets into, you stealing a child. That's kidnapping because you took something that didn't belong to you that was a child. But we're supposed to be owners of our own bodies. We're responsible for what we put in. Our parents aren't always around us to tell us or to make sure we don't do something that's wrong or to tell us to do the right thing. There's no one there to force you to do what's right. And when I say force, it's not like when I was growing up and my grandmother brought us castor oil, and it was like, I don't want that. Well, if you said you didn't want it, that just means somebody's going to hold the back of your head as they shoved it down your mouth with a fork or a spoon, not a fork. Now, today, that'd probably be child abuse. Back then, that was considered being a responsible parent. But I remember those horrible days. But, no one was there when I wanted to skip school. That was something I chose to do. No one was there, when I wanted to skip class and go play basketball because we had a basketball game that night. So I'd rather go practice basketball than go to Spanish class, and end up skipping Spanish class for the whole year. And now I'm an adult and I really need Spanish class. I could have saved myself a lot of time if I would have just paid attention in school. I've learned that everything you do to resist education, you find out you should have done it because you're going to end up having to do it one time. One day you're going to have to do it to continue moving forward in something you do. So here you see it says you too can say no. When it comes to being responsible for yourself, you too can say no. When faced with negative conformity in the form of friends trying to convince you that everybody's doing it, trying to drug just once won't hurt you, or over drinking alcohol helps you to deal with stress, you can politely and firmly say no. Say it like you mean it. If you hesitate, or if you say it like you're not sure, your friends might think that you're just playing around. This will give them the opportunity to try to talk you into something that's wrong. Be strong when you say no and stand firm. Don't let any amount of teasing or name-calling make you change your mind. Don't get talked into doing something you will eventually regret. This is about your life, your future, and your self-respect. Oh, and one more thing. If your friends will put you down for being responsible, you might want to consider finding new friends. And really quickly, going to this next slide, I call you back to page 62 here of the acceptance unit on who is a friend. And remember chapter 4, we went through of the acceptance unit about even the 4 stages of choosing a friend and how to go through the observation stage and so forth, and even deciding that someone is your friend. And of course here, once again, if someone's trying to get you to do something wrong, well, that's not a friend. But notice here, this was off of page 62 of the acceptance unit. It says a friend is one who supports, respects, encourages, and accepts you as a unique individual. Friends can come in all shapes and sizes and from all walks of life. Friends can come from all nationalities and ethnicities. It is important to not cut yourself off from getting to know someone because they are different. Keep in mind that no two people are exactly alike. We are all unique human beings who share more similarities than differences. And then, of course, the bottom of that page, choosing friends, which is the next slide, it says the importance of choosing positive friends cannot be overstated. People with immoral principles and negative characters as friends can influence you to make choices that you could regret for the rest of your life. Learning to recognize the qualities that make a positive friend takes time and effort. Avoid meeting someone and immediately deciding to accept this person as a friend. Take your time to learn about him or her. Remember, just because someone has a great personality does not mean they have a positive moral character. When choosing friends, keep these things in mind and proceed with wisdom and caution. Now, that's what we're talking about in choosing friends. Take your time. Get to know a person when choosing a friend. People don't do that before they go to the bar. They go to the bar and it's like, oh, Harry, how are you? And usually when the night's over, they wake up the next morning, it's, what was your name? I don't think I caught it. And that's a sad reality of life. And some people, I've talked to people that have told me that they've been with people and they have no idea what their name was. If they had to try to find them again, if they gave them an STD, there's no way they could track them down because they don't know what their name is, don't know what city they were from. They just know they met them in this bar on this night. And that's all they know about them. You know, and I've talked to people that through doing those things end up with the sad reality of, man, you know, I tested positive for hepatitis C. That's a scary thing. And I asked them when they told me that, I said, was it worth it? Well, no, it wasn't worth it. You can't fix it now, though, can you? You know, that's the sad part. That's the sad part of reality. We're going to stop right there. We'll pick back up next class. Our next class is going to be the 28th, this coming Wednesday at 5:30. So we'll pick up here on page 59, but we'll go back and rehearse a little bit more with this just saying no, you can say no, and how it's part of ownership and why you have the right to say no. No one should be able to cause you or force you to do something that would cause you harm. So once again, our next class will be on the 28th, this coming Wednesday, and we'll pick back up here on page 59. Thank you for joining us.